Hello and welcome back to another episode of TheFIX, a show about post-processing and the cool and creative things we get to do with our images after the shoot. I'm Sean Duggan, your host, and on today's show I've got a few things to talk about. First up is the return of the Rocky Nook book giveaway, where you can win the book of your choice from Rocky Nook Press. Then I've got a new weekly series at lynda.com to tell you about. And finally, for the main course, we're going to be delving into Lightroom Keywords 101. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in and joining me. I do appreciate that. Before we dive into the topic du jour for this week's show, which is Lightroom Keywords 101, I just have a couple of quick announcements to go through. First up is the announcement about the book giveaway that I mentioned in the intro. It is back. The book giveaway was on hiatus for a couple of weeks, but now it's back, so you can win the Rocky Nook book of your choice. And thanks very much to Rocky Nook for generously sponsoring our book giveaway. You might want to head over to their website, rockynook.com, take a look at all their cool photography books to see which one you might choose if you are the lucky winner. And in terms of entering to win the book giveaway, I will have details on what you need to do to enter coming up at the end of the show after we talk about Lightroom keywords. All right, next up is I have a new weekly series on lynda.com, which is premiering this week. I believe this episode here is going to air on Wednesday of this week, which means that yesterday, Tuesday, July 12th, the first episode premiered. And that weekly series is called Mobile Photography Weekly. And basically, if it has to do with mobile photography, we're going to take a look at it in that series. And each week there's going to be an episode that'll launch on Tuesday. It's a short episode, maybe, 4 to 7 minutes, something like that. And we take a look at a different aspect of mobile photography, whether it's actual camera photographic practice, or working with apps, or organizing your images, or cool things you can do with the images you take on your mobile device, whether that is a camera phone or a tablet. We're going to be looking at both iOS iPhones as well as Android devices. And the great thing is that each week's episode is free. You don't need to be a lynda.com subscriber to watch it and enjoy it. For that first week, that episode is entirely free. Anybody can watch it. But then if you want to watch, subsequent episodes, once they start accumulating in the library, you do have to be a lynda.com subscriber. However, I will say that it is an excellent resource that has courses on an incredibly wide range of topics. It's not just photography and Photoshop. There's all sorts of things in there. And I have a URL where you can go to get a free 10-day trial. Just go to lynda.com/trial/Sean Duggan, and you can sign up for that free 10-day trial. And that way you can check out not just, some of my courses on photography and Photoshop and compositing and things like that, as well as Mobile Photography Weekly. But you can check out all of the courses. Well, maybe not all. You probably wouldn't be able to watch them all in 10 days, but you can check out a lot of the different types of courses that are available on lynda.com. Now, one word of advice about using a 10-day trial, only activate it when you have 10 days in your schedule where you can actually devote some attention to it. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to have time to get to it. So I will put a link to Mobile Photography Weekly, the new series on lynda.com, in the show notes, and I'll also put a link to where you can get that free trial, that free 10-day trial. All right, so let's dive into Lightroom Keywording 101. The very first thing you need to know about keywords, whether we're talking about using keywords in Lightroom or some other program, is that they are very, very useful. And two, you should definitely be using them because they will make your image archiving and image catalog life a lot easier. It is really heady stuff when you have a large Lightroom catalog of, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of images, and you're able to type in a keyword and find an image from several years ago that you're looking for, just like that. Oh, it's happened to me before, and it's great. Of course, you have to put in some investment up front by first adding keywords to those images. And that is what this show is all about. We're not going to be going into every single potential detail about working with keywords in Lightroom or keywording strategy or something like that. The aim of this show is just to give you the essential information to get you up and running and up and started in working with keywords, adding them to your images in Lightroom, because adding keywords to your images not only makes them easier to find, which is, of course, probably the main reason you might want to add them, but it also adds value to your image catalog. Those images become more valuable because you can find them more easily, and then you might be able to monetize them more easily if you get a request for a certain type of image. You can type in the keyword, find it, and boom, potentially make some money off of it, or just put it to work in a project without wasting a lot of time. Plus, it'll also let you enjoy your image collection more, because you can find your images with less hassle and less frustration. So, without further ado, let's dive in and take a look at Lightroom Keywords 101. Now, one of the first places where you should think about working with keywords in Lightroom is when you import images, because there is a place in the import dialog, which we'll see here shortly, where you can apply keywords as the images are being imported. And that really makes a lot of sense to hit the images with as many keywords as you can when you're importing them, because right off the bat, they're going to have keywords associated with them, which is going to be potentially a crucial bit of information that'll help you find those images in the future. Even if you never add any other keywords to them, adding some basic keywords upon import is a really crucial concept. Before we get to that, however, I want to just briefly go over the places in the Lightroom interface here in the library module where you can work with keywords. And we're going to be hitting several of these throughout our conversation here on Lightroom Keywords 101. So the first place over here is going to be in the panels on the right side of the library module. You'll see we have the keywording panel and then also the keyword list. So if I open up the keywording panel, this is where I can enter keywords. This keyword tags menu here is set to enter keywords right now. So I can enter keywords in here. There's also two little panels here for keyword suggestions and keyword sets, which Lightroom comes with some keyword sets, and you can also define some yourself. We'll talk about those a little bit later. Then we have the keyword list, and the keyword list represents a list of every keyword that is currently applied to an image in your catalog. Now, this catalog here that I'm working with is a demo catalog, or as I like to call it, a stunt catalog. So this doesn't have my entire full keyword list in it. But if there is an image in the catalog that has a given keyword, that keyword is going to show up here, and it'll also give you a count of how many images have that keyword. We're going to be coming back and talking about the keyword list here in a little bit more detail later, but before we get to the import dialog, there's one thing I'm going to do to this keyword list to show you what you can do. I'm going to come down midway here to a place where I have a keyword group called places. Now you'll notice that some of these keywords here have a disclosure triangle next to them. Whenever you see that, it means you can click on that and open that up to see nested keywords inside of it. So this is a really key concept here that we're going to explore in a little bit more detail later. But in terms of locations, I like to organize my locations by geographic region on the planet. So for instance, here in this, stripped down subset of a catalog that I'm working with, I have Europe, and within Europe, I've got France and Germany. Within Germany, I've got, several locations there. And the same thing in North America. I've got USA, and then I've got all these different states. And then within a state, for instance, I have California here. Within that, I have, many different locations within that state. And I can even come and refine that a bit further down here for San Francisco. I have several locations within San Francisco. And then I can further narrow it if I want to. Here's a keyword group here for the San Francisco Maritime Museum. And I've got a couple of individual ships that they have there on display. So you don't have to get this detail, but I find that at least in terms of locations, it really helps to have the locations all grouped in one place here within the keyword list. Because if you don't have them grouped that way, Lightroom's just going to arrange them alphabetically. So you're going to have place names or location names scattered all around your keyword list. So just a quick tip there on creating a nested keyword structure of keyword groups for places and locations. Because even if you don't get into using keywords very much, certainly location names is one type of keyword that would be easy to add to many of your images. And that's also oftentimes, I think, how we think of images, where we took it. And that could be a way to find your images. But apropos place names, I'm going to be going into the import dialog here in just a second, but I know that I'm going to be importing some pictures that were taken in Los Angeles, so I currently do not have a keyword in here for Los Angeles, so I want to add that in here. So I wanted to show you how we could do that. So I'm going to right-click on the keyword group here for California, and I can open up a menu, which gives me many different useful choices. One of those would be to create a keyword tag inside my highlighted group, in this case, California, and that's indeed what I want to do. So I'm going to just type in Los Angeles. And if there were any synonyms, I could put that in there, La La Land, if I wanted to do that, or LA. Let's just do LA. That's pretty good. And if I had a bunch of photos selected at this time, I could click on that to add them to the selected photos. That's not an appropriate choice in this instance, so I'm going to not worry about that. So I'll just create that, and you can see that that's been created right there, Los Angeles. And the other thing I'm going to do is that I know that the pictures from Los Angeles that I'm going to import were taken at the LA County Museum of Art, so I'm going to add another keyword set inside there to define that. So I'll right-click there, create keyword tag inside Los Angeles, and I'm just going to create the keyword LACMA for the LA County Museum of Art. And I could give this a synonym of museum. That might help me find that later. So I'll just create that, and there we have that has been added. So this is similar to what I've got going on for San Francisco. I've got different parts within San Francisco, different neighborhoods, maybe different places in the city. And I have the same thing here with Los Angeles. And, I can always add to that as you continue to visit a certain place on future occasions. You can always add different regions within there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's now move over to the import dialog. So I've inserted a memory card into a card reader, and here is the import dialog. In terms of the types of keywords you would apply upon import, it really depends on how varied the images on the memory card are. So for instance, on this memory card, I have many different groups of images. I have some Southern California beach shots. I've got the museum in Los Angeles that I mentioned earlier. And then I've got some pictures in San Francisco at sunset and shots of the Golden Gate Bridge and some other pictures here as well, which are kind of studio camera setup shots and some shots I made for an illustration for a class I'm working on. So if I was going to import all 417 of these pictures, there's really no one keyword that would work for all of them. So depending on how you're importing your images, you may find that it really might not be that workable to try to add keywords to everything. So this memory card here is a good example. The location and subject matter of all these pictures is so varied that there's no way that I could really enter a group of keywords that would apply to all of the photos. And that is really kind of a key concept there, is that when you're adding keywords in the import process, the keywords will apply to all of the photos that you add. So it could be that on certain imports, you don't apply any keywords and you just add the keywords once they've been imported. In my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on destination folders here up at the top to view my images based on the day that they were taken, and that'll kind of separate them out a little bit for me. So if I come over here to the right side, you can see it's showing me 68 photos were taken here on that first date, and then there's the LA Museum ones, the second batch, etc. So I can segregate all these pictures based on when they were taken. So I find that a useful way for importing pictures when I know I only want to import certain days at a time, either to make the keywording process upon import a little bit easier, or maybe I've already imported some of my pictures and I only need a certain group of pictures imported. By the way, apropos the import dialog, I'm not going to be going into everything about the import dialog in this episode. That would just be take a little bit too long, especially since I want to focus on keywords here. But I do have a show that I recorded back in November, episode 41 of TheFIX, which does go into the Lightroom import dialog in a little bit more detail, with a specific focus on the destination panel of the Lightroom import dialog and ensuring that you know where the images that you're importing are going on your hard drive, that they're going into the right folder, and then also that no unwanted or redundant nested folders are being created. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes if anybody wants to go back and watch that episode from last November. All right, back to Lightroom here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to choose Uncheck All down at the bottom to uncheck all of those. And then I'm just going to go in and check the date for the Los Angeles pictures that I want to bring in. And here in the Apply During Import panel, this is where you can add the keywords that will be applied to all images that you import. So again, there are minimal keywords that I could apply here. I am going to tag this with Los Angeles. Now, since I already have Los Angeles as a keyword in there, it is suggesting that, and it's popping up this little menu. I can use the arrow keys to navigate through the different choices that are there. So I'm just going to highlight that last choice there and tap the Enter key. Now I'm going to tap a comma, and I'm going to start to enter the LACMA keyword. And again, you can see how it is showing up there, and I could always add that one there as well. I'm not going to enter the keyword LA here because remember I added that as a synonym when I created the Los Angeles keyword group in the keyword list. However, I will add the keyword museum there. Let's see, what else could I enter here? That's probably about it. I could maybe enter the keyword art. I'll just press the Enter key to apply those. And good to go. Let me just make sure I am going to be importing these to the right place. I'll come down here and navigate to where I want to put these. And these are going in my Lightroom demo catalog here in originals, and they should be going into the 2016 folder. Yeah, they're going into the 2016 folder, which is where I want to put them. And it's going to create a new folder. It's going to organize them by date, and it's going to create a new folder based on the date the pictures were taken. And this is an expression of the date that I have chosen here. It's this whole destination folder and organizing your pictures and creating new folders as you import that I do go into in more detail in that episode of TheFIX, show number 41. So for more information on that, check out that show. All right, I will click import and bring these into the system. And then once the import has finished, we'll talk about further ways you can add keywords to your images. All right, the import of these 65 pictures from LA is done. So let's now talk about what you would do with keywords after you import. Let me actually just come up here to the top of my panels here so we can see the keywording panel, which is where we're going to be working initially. And if I click on one of these images, you can see how it has already has those keywords that I have added, so that's good. Now, typically, when I am wanting to add keywords to images after I've imported, I am concerned with adding those keywords that I couldn't really add at the time that I specified them in the import dialog. So I might want to get a little bit more detailed with the keywords depending on how I'm using my images. And before we do that, let me just sort of clarify that the kind of most essential reason you would add keywords to images is just so you can find your pictures. Obviously, if you are dealing in stock photography or creating or curating a Lightroom collection for some other purpose, either for a publication or a museum or a collection or whatever like that, you might be a lot more detailed and you might have very specific needs for how you might add keywords to the images. But for most people, the reason we're adding keywords to our images is just so we can find our pictures again. So in terms of the types of keywords that you're going to add, as well as how detailed you're going to get with your keywords, it really just depends on you and what you think are going to be the keywords that are going to help you find your images. For most people, it's just going to be the basic location things. You know, I took these in Los Angeles, I took them to the museum. That's probably all that they would need to know to find these images. But sometimes it is useful to add other keywords. And so we'll use this group of images as a quick example here of how you might do that. So when I'm looking at a group of images I've just imported, I typically try to add keywords to the largest number of images possible and then gradually narrow the focus and work with smaller and smaller subsets of images. So we'll just sort of take this as an example here. This group of pictures in the middle here of these sculptures and statues, that's probably that and this yellow exterior sculpture here that people can interact with. That's probably the largest group of images I can initially work with. So I'm going to select those by clicking on the first one and then shift-clicking on the last one. And I'm going to command-click or control-click to subtract a couple of images out that are not sculpture. I'll come up into the keywording panel here, and where it says keyword tags, you can see that I'm set to enter the keyword. So I'll just click in there to put my cursor after that last keyword. I'll type a comma and then tap the space bar. And I'm going to add sculpture. Now you can see that sculpture already comes up as a suggested keyword there, kind of autofill. So that looks good. I'll just press enter there. To accept that, type a comma and another space. And let me also type statue. And statue comes up because that keyword already exists in my catalog. So anytime you see kind of an autofill suggestion here of a keyword, it's not pulling it out of the blue. It is pulling it from keywords that already exist in your catalog. So that's pretty good on that. Most of these statues here are kind of the classical nature. So I'm going to put classical in there as well. All right, next up I have this group of pictures that is this outdoor sculpture of all of these yellow plastic strands that are hanging down, and you can kind of walk inside this and interact with it. It's pretty cool. So for that, I'm definitely going to add the keyword yellow, just because oftentimes if there is a color that is really dominant in an image, I do like to add a keyword for that, because sometimes I like to go through my images and find images that all share a certain dominant color or specific color palette. So I'll put yellow there. I'm not sure what else I could put there for that. I'm just going to leave that the way it is for now. Let's move on to some of the next pictures here. Let's go up to the top. We've got these monumental steel sculptures here. So I'll select those pictures and do steel. Again, sculpture. Maybe rust, because they kind of have a rusty patina on them. And then this next group of pictures, this is kind of hard to see what's going on. Let me just zoom up so you can see what this is. This is a really fascinating sculpture, although a blurry image of it. There we go. There's a nice sharp image. This was a fascinating sculpture called Metropolis 2 by an artist named Chris Burden. And it was this gigantic room-size construction of all of these tracks. And there were these conveyor belts that brought these matchbox cars up to the top, and then they would gradually dump them down onto these tracks that came down, and just by gravity, the cars would zoom around through this giant metropolis city and eventually make their way to the bottom and be then lifted up again on the conveyor belt to the top. A really cool sculpture and installation piece. Now, if you're listening to the audio version of TheFIX, I do want to point out that at this point in the podcast, I have been showing some video footage of this really incredible installation called Metropolis 2 by Chris Burden. And I just checked the website at the LA County Museum of Art, and it is listed as being ongoing. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So if you are in the Los Angeles area and you want to learn more about it, you can go to the website, learn more about it. And who knows, maybe if it fits into your schedule and you're in the LA area, you can stop by for a visit yourself. Now, in this one, I do know the name of the artist. So I think I'm going to add the artist's name here. And there it is showing up. And I'll even enter Metropolis as well. There we go. Or rather, Metropolis 2, which was the name of that particular sculpture. And sometimes I do that with certain types of artwork. Oftentimes when I'm in a museum like this, I'll take a picture of the little descriptive information about a particular artwork so I know the name of the artwork, who created it, and some background if I find that interesting. Next, I see a couple of images here, 4 images actually, that have the color red in common. So these stairs, and then these 2 images at the bottom, which are of an exterior, I don't know, ventilation duct or something like that. So I'll add the keyword red there so that I could find those. And let me just select the ones of the stairs. And since I do photograph stairs and steps a lot, I'll do stairs and steps. That's probably all I'm going to enter for that one. And then finally down at the bottom here, there are several pictures that are just more architectural in nature, in terms of just pictures of the museum space, not anything specific. So I'll just add architecture for that. All right, so that is my basic process for how I might add keywords after I have imported images. Now, there are other ways you could add keywords as well, and let's just leave this group of the museum shots up here and work with that. This is just for example purposes anyway. So down below here, the keywording panel, there are keyword suggestions. And keyword suggestions come up based on the image that is currently active, as well as the images that are around it, and keywords you've been adding to those other images. So you can see that the keyword suggestions that are coming up here are all, most of them anyway, based on other keywords that I've been adding here, although there's some other ones that are coming in, like beach and coast. Maybe I've got other pictures taken in Southern California or Los Angeles near the beach or the coast, and that's why those are coming up. But also, I have these keyword sets. Now, keyword sets, right now it's coming up with recent keywords, so that might be useful if I had a bunch of other pictures from the museum to bring in. Lightroom will come with certain keyword sets here, such as outdoor photography, portrait photography, and wedding photography. So let's just go to, outdoor photography to start with. And let me show you how you can edit these. So I'm going to open up this menu again. I'm going to choose to edit that set. And I'm going to change these. So I'm going to make up some random names. I'm going to do George here. Press the tab key, and we'll do Marcia. And of course, it wants to fill in. We just want Marcia. Now, here's a tip about keywords. Now, if it wants to fill in like that, you can do a couple things. You can either hit the space bar, or you can just press delete, and that way it will get rid of that part that's highlighted. So let's do Steve and Jerry and Alyssa and whatever. I'm not going to do all of these in here. Let's change macro to Marco. There we go. All right, so now I've edited this keyword set for outdoor photography, but I don't really want to edit it. I want to create a new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the preset menu, and I'm going to choose to save this current settings as a new preset, and I'll just call this, I don't know, family. Maybe this is the name of my family members. So we'll just choose create, and now I can cancel that, and then this becomes a preset here. So there you can see it's family, and there are those keywords right there. Now, one thing you can do is if you just press a button, it will apply that keyword. So let's say that this guy here is Marco. So I can just click the button here, Marco, and it adds that keyword up there. The other thing you can do, let's come down and select this guy here. We'll select these two pictures, is that you can use the shortcut of Option or Alt on Windows, and you can see that that puts some numbers there. So if I just hold that Option key down and type the number 5, it's going to add that keyword. So let's add the keyword Jerry, and you can see now that to those two photos that have been selected, Jerry has been added. So keyword sets are really useful for common groups of keywords that you're using all the time. You know, you might be a publication that concentrates on a specific metropolitan or, urban area, and maybe you have, keywords for the different neighborhoods in the town, things like that. Very, very useful. Now, one other thing I want to point out here about adding keywords, notice that I'm in the grid mode here, and I can select all of these, several images at once and add a keyword to all of those images just with one click or one keyboard shortcut or something. I do want to just clarify that it is very important that you are in the grid mode when you're doing that. For instance, if I am viewing the image like this in loop view, you might think, well, I want to add this, we'll call this Marcia here. I want to add Marcia's keyword to all of these images of Marcia. So I could select them down in the film strip there, but if I click this button for Marcia, or if I just type in a keyword up here, it's only going to add it to the first image that I selected. So you can see this image down here. The border around the image here is a little bit brighter and whiter than the subsequent images. This means that this is the first image that I had selected. So it's only going to add Marcia to that image. So it says that Marcia's been added here, but if I come out to the grid view and I click on one of these other images, we can see that the keyword of Marcia is not there. So if you want to add keywords to multiple images at the same time, you do need to be in grid mode. So now that I'm in grid mode and I have these 3 pictures selected, I can click on the button here in my family keyword set to add the Marcia keyword. All right, next let's move on to another useful way that you can access keywords, or more specifically, see which images in your collection need to be keyworded. I'm going to come out to my collections panel here. And down in the collections panel, there is a collections set called Smart Collections. So the collection sets are designated by this icon of the little box here, and then the regular collections are the little icon of kind of like a stack of photos. I'm going to go into the Smart Collections collection set here. Now, these are collections that ship with Lightroom, so you don't have to create these. Lightroom comes with these, and the Smart Collections are designated by the fact that they have a little, either you can interpret that as a little gear icon on them, or maybe it's a little magical sparkle. I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, Smart Collections are not collections that you can add images to. They are populated just if certain rules are met. Now, the one Smart Collection I want to draw your attention to is this one here called Without Keywords. And if I click on that, it's going to show me that there are 945 images in my catalog here that are without keywords. So that's a lot, especially considering that this catalog here has only, 1,600 images in it. But as I mentioned earlier, this is a demo catalog or a stunt catalog. And if you want to learn more about the concept of why it might be important to maintain a stunt catalog, let me draw your attention to a previous episode of TheFIX that I did in February of this year, episode 53, which was called Photo SOS Lightroom Stunt Catalog. Essentially, it's all about why it's a good idea to create a stunt catalog and how you can use that to try out different operations and processes without having to worry that it might mess up your real catalog. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for you. All right, back to Lightroom. So this Smart Collection without keywords, if I double click on that, it brings up the rules for that Smart Collection. So basically it says, add pictures to this if all of these rules are met. And that would be, keywords are empty. So this shows me that I've got essentially about 2/3 of my image catalog here, this demo catalog, have no keywords. So I would need to add those. So let me just scroll down here. And I know that I have some here that were taken in France. So let me just select the ones that were taken in France. And there we go. So all of these were taken in France. So what I'm going to do is come over here to my keyword list. And I'm going to go down to that place where I have the places keyword that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. I'll go into Europe. And there's France. And I already have a keyword for Nice, which is where these photographs were taken. So here's another way that you can add keywords to your images. Instead of just typing Nice up in the Enter Keywords field, which of course I could do, I can also just click this empty checkbox here. So I've already added the keyword of Nice, but if I just click on this, it will apply that keyword to all of those pictures. Those pictures have now disappeared because I'm still in the without keywords field, and I've just added keywords to those. So let me show you another really interesting shortcut here involving the keyword list. If you come over here to where it shows you how many pictures have a specific keyword, if you click on that arrow there, it will take you and show you the images that have that keyword. Essentially, it's a shortcut to the metadata filter, and you can see here that the metadata filter has opened up, and I can see that it's sorting my images by the keyword of Nice. And I'm still here in the All Photographs view. So this is a nice way to check that out. Now, another cool thing about nesting your keywords this way, so by that I mean, I have, it says places, Europe, France, and then Nice. The cool thing here is that even though I have only applied the keyword Nice, and not France, since Nice is nested within the keyword group of France, France and even Europe become implied keywords. So I could search for France, even though you can see that none of my images currently have the keyword France added to them, I could still search for France and it would find those. So let's just check that out. Let's come up here to the loop view, and if we zoom up to the top and open up the keywording panel, we can see that Nice is the only keyword that is applied to this image, and indeed to all of these images that we've just been looking at. Okay, so let's go out here to the grid mode again, and let's turn off the filter. I'll just choose none there, and let's just go all the way up to the very top of my All Photographs view, so that we're nowhere near those pictures. And if I come here and open up the text filter to do a search based on text, I could search any searchable field here if I wanted to, but I'm going to just specify this to be keywords. And I'm going to type France. And you can see that it is now displaying those 152 images from Nice that I recently keyworded. And so the keyword France is not there, but because it exists as a part of a nested keyword structure in my keyword list, it is an implied keyword, and I can search for that. So very, very useful. I'm going to turn that filter off just by clicking on the X here to turn that off. Now, another thing you can do with a keyword list is you can search for keywords. So, for instance, I can filter the keywords here. So if I click there in that little search field at the top of the keyword list, I can type a word and find the keyword for that. So I typed Trona, and you can see it's only showing me the keyword or the nested keyword structure that is associated with that keyword. So it says Trona Pinnacles, and it's showing me that that's inside California, which is inside USA, inside North America, etc. And then, of course, I could click on that arrow, and I could go to see the pictures that were taken at the Trona Pinnacles. So very, very useful way to use that keyword list. Now, another thing that I want to mention here, harkening back to the without keywords set here, is that if you're ever going through your images and, for whatever reason, you're working on some other project, you're searching for other images, and you find yourself in a folder of images that are not keyworded, I always like to recommend using the while I'm in here strategy of adding keywords. Because if you're right there, you've got a few minutes, add, the bare minimum amount of keywords that'll help you find those images in the future, because that will definitely make it easier to locate images when you need to. Nothing is more frustrating than when you want to find an image. You know you've taken that image, you know it's in your catalog, but you just cannot find it. Can't remember when you took it, whatever. But while you're in there looking at a folder of images, if you can add keywords, by all means, go ahead and do it. Okay, I want to show you one more way that you can add keywords to your images. And I'm going to get out of the without keywords smart collection, because when you're adding keywords to this, it can be a little bit confusing, because as you add the keywords, the images will disappear. And so that could throw you off. So for instance, if I selected these 3 images here and I just entered, clouds, for instance, the minute I enter them, they disappear because, of course, now they have keywords and they no longer fit the rule for the without keywords smart collection. So that can be a little bit perplexing until you get used to it. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on the first selected thumbnail here, and I'm going to choose Go to Folder in Library. So it's going to take me out of this smart collection and take me up to the actual folder in the library where these pictures can be found. All right. So this was a road trip up to Boise, Idaho, and I'm just going to add the keyword road trip. Now, of course, I could obviously add other location-based keywords describing where we were and the landscape and the fact that it was winter, things like that. But I just want to add one keyword here using this other alternate method. So the method is down here in the toolbar, which you find below the grid of thumbnails. Now, this toolbar is a pretty subtle area of the interface, and it can be easily hidden accidentally if you just tap the letter T on the keyboard. Notice how it's gone away. So the letter T is the shortcut for hiding or showing the toolbar. You can also find that up here under the View menu. All right, so I do want to show the toolbar, and there's this little can of spray paint down here. Now, if you activate the can of spray paint, that allows you to add a variety of different things to an image. You can add keywords, a color label, a flag, a star rating, metadata, etc. All of these different things can be added using that can of spray paint. I want to add a keyword, and what's really hard to see here, this is like kind of subtle. I think it needs to be a little bit more visible, but right here it says enter keywords here. So I'm going to click in there, and I'll just enter in the keyword road trip. And now I can take my can of spray paint, and you can see up here in the image at the top, there's the can of spray paint, and I can click on that, and it will add that keyword to that image. Click on another one, it's going to add that keyword. Or I can just click and drag over a range of images if I want to add that keyword. So I'm just going to do the first 3 rows here so we can see that. And let me just now park the spray can back in there. And you can see that any image that I dragged over in those first 3 rows has the keyword road trip. So that's yet another way that you might possibly add keywords to images. Personally, I don't use the spray can very much or really at all. I just find it a little bit cumbersome. But, a lot of people, it may work for you. And so if it works for you, great. The main moral of the story here is that any way that you can add keywords to your images is going to make them easier to find, as well as add more value to those images and to your image catalog, because images that have keywords mean that in addition to being able to find them easily, you might be able to monetize them more, because you'll be able to find a specific type of image faster and be able to get it into the project workflow much faster. Well, I hope that you found that useful. And if you're new to Lightroom and working with keywords in Lightroom, I hope that overview has given you kind of a good foundation base of information for how to best use them, the places in the program where you might apply keywords, and also how to be a little bit more efficient in how you go about it. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, anything you can add to your image in the form of keywords is going to help you find those images quicker and more efficiently, and just also add value to your image catalog, because there's more information associated with the images that you can then put to use in a variety of ways. All right, on to the details about the Rocky Nook book giveaway. So the giveaway period here for entry, or rather the entry period, is 2 weeks. So the entries are going to close on Wednesday, July 27th, 2016, at the end of day, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. And all you need to do to enter is head to the webpage for this particular episode of TheFIX. You can find that by going to our website, thisweekinphoto.com/TheFIX. Find the page for episode 074 and leave a comment on the page. And you can do it 2 ways. You can either upload an image and then tell us what the keywords would be for that image. Or if that feels like too much work for you, you can also just describe an image. Just describe an image using a sentence or two, and then tell us what the keywords would be. And, have some fun with it, too. Maybe, you might want to describe it in terms of, a fictional scene or film noir, or write a short poem or a haiku. Mix it up a little bit. Anyway, very important part about leaving the comment, we do use kind of comment moderation software called Discuss, and you need to sign up for that. And that's important because that's going to basically have an email address that you're going to enter in, and that way we can contact you if you win the book giveaway. Because, obviously if you win, you want to be able to have us get in touch with you to let you know that you have won. And the other thing would be you can always check back when the entries close. In this case, again, July 27th, 2016, to see if you've won, because I'll leave a comment there in addition to trying to get in touch with you. All right, so that's the news on the book giveaway. Please go ahead and enter. I love giving away books and sending those out. You can subscribe to TheFIX. Go to the website, thisweekinphoto.com/TheFIX. There's a place on the right side of the page where you can subscribe to the show. And if you want to send us feedback in terms of topics you might want to see covered on future episodes or guests you might want to see interviewed, there is a Contact Us link at the top of the page. Go ahead and click on that, and then in that contact form, there's a menu where you can choose what show you are sending the comment for. So make sure you choose this show, TheFIX. I'm Sean Duggan. Thanks very much for watching. Catch you next week on TheFIX.